if they will have me, I would love to do that. That was one of my favorite characters, the voice, because literally it didn't hurt. It was like a warm-up exercise. Vibrating in there. It was great. And I didn't have, it was basically whispering for a couple of hours. It was wonderful. And he's such a badass, too. I love it. So, yeah, if they call me, I'm waiting by the phone. Hi.
So as you can probably guess, I'm a pretty big Digimon fan. There was actually one of the things I actually only learned several months ago that you were apparently the voice of Guillemon, which I found to be like really surprising.
Me too.
My life is complete now.
What's your name?
It's Lars.
Lars? Larsman? Got bread? I love when Lars gives us.
Sorry.
I know a lot of people who seem to be like casually familiar with your work, seem to think that like the voice used for Spike, which like isn't really too far from your normal speaking voice. It's just sort of your voice. That's sort of how they imagine you. Like, do you ever encounter that? Do you ever encounter people who sort of think that you're typecast for a certain role, even though you have like a legitimately impressive range?
Yeah, for years it was actually kind of a barrier for me to get work. People did know me as Spike, and it was hard for me to read for other roles, especially if they were way out there. There was a show called Gurren Lagann.
Woohoo!
And I originally came in to read for the role of Kamina on that. And I saw the model sheet for Leron sitting over in the corner. I said, "What's that?" They said, "Oh no, that's not for you." I said, "That looks really cool and fun. I want to do that." And they said, "No." And the Japanese clients were in the room at the time, and the director, who was a friend of mine, said, "Well, let him try it. This should be funny." And they didn't take me seriously at all, and I picked it up and I went,
When you screw it in, give it a hard manly twist, hon.
the Japanese clients were like,
Do more.
I ended up doing like this whole crazy audition in front of everybody there, and they hired me. And it was so much fun, but sometimes I actually have to request to read for stuff that they don't think I'm right for. And for you new voice actors, don't be afraid to do that sometimes, read against your type, and you never know what you're gonna get. Guillemon is a great example. I was there doing some creature that day, and they said that they weren't happy with what they were getting from the actor who was currently doing Guillemon. They really wanted something a little more specific, something a little more memorable. And so the director asked me to try it while I was in the booth.
And I did that voice, and she said, "Yes, that's it."
And I've never gotten to do that voice on anything else. And so, yeah, I've always been up against that. But that's just one of the little pitfalls of being an actor, and you just have to have the courage to step up and say, "I want to try something else if you'll let me." All they can do is say no, so yeah, but that still happens. I actually went into an audition. I got a call back for, I think it was a video game years ago, and I walked into the room and I introduced myself, and they said, "Oh no, you can't be him. We heard the audition, that can't be you." And I said, "No, it's me." And they said, "We thought you were a 350-pound black man." I said, "No, but I can play." That's what I was doing for the audition. That was the description. And they said, "Oh, no, we can't use you. I'm sorry. There was a mistake." And they let me go. And one of my friends got the role. I think it was Kevin Michael Richardson. He's one of my dear friends. And I typically don't read against a race necessarily unless it's something very specific, because there are so many people of different ethnicities that don't get as much of a chance to read in voiceover. And so I will actually not read for things, or I'll turn things down. And I'll make sure that all of my friends, whether they're Native American or Chinese or whatever background they come from, violinists, gets a read for it first. And then if nobody can do it, then I'll give it a shot. And usually I'm wrong for it, but I'll try. So, but that's kind of a fun challenge. I love reading as far from my type as I can.
Mr. Blum?
Oh, just Steve. My son is Mr. Blum. He's a teacher.
So recently I was on YouTube watching Star Wars show and they had you on an interview concerning Zeb. And I was just curious, like, you said that you're a huge Star Wars fan, so whenever you went to go audition for Zeb, was that the character that you wanted to do, or was there maybe another character in Rebels that you were interested in doing? I'm a huge Star Wars fan myself, so I was really curious.
I didn't know it was Star Wars. Lucas is very, very careful about auditioning, the audition process for any of their projects, like many video games, like many other things are, where it was called Wolf at the time. It wasn't called Star Wars Rebels. And the character was not even called Zeb. Stormtroopers were just called troopers. We didn't know what it was. They had rewritten it completely for the audition process. And I went to callbacks, we played with the voice and stuff, but it didn't really sink in that this was Star Wars until I actually booked the job. I was in England at the time doing a Transformers convention, and I went to the studio out in the middle of nowhere, and they said that I booked this job called Wolf, and go on in, and you got like a 2-hour session, and it's going to be over the phone with some guys in Northern California. And I thought, okay, great. I walk in the studio, and I look at the sides that they gave me, and I see Stormtroopers on there. And I went, this is Star Wars. That's when it really clicked in. They had told me in the callbacks that it was Star Wars, but it didn't really click in that this was a Star Wars cartoon, like a big budget show. I never thought that I would book anything like that. So had I known, I probably would have been really nervous. So I recorded the Zeb audition as I would record any other audition. It was just, they would give me a description of the character and I would go with it. And the only challenge with Zeb was just honing in the dialect. So we started first with, I think, heady Cockney, which was just unintelligible. He's young, too much mouth sounds, and that sort of thing. And I thought it's an alien, he's probably got some weird teeth thing going on. So I said,
soundtrack for not saying this. Sorry.
that's okay, I like the soundtrack. So we tried a bunch of different dialects with that, and we went to Russian, we did German, we did all sorts of different things, and we ended up with something that I just call bad UK accent. It's based on Cockney, but we threw a little bit of Australian, New Zealand in, a little bit of Northern England, a little bit of Yorkshire creeps in every once in a while. We wanted something that's sort of identifiable, but could also be alien. So that was how we landed with that. But yeah, I've loved Star Wars since 1977. I was there for the first screenings of the original movie. So I've been a fan all these years, and worked on the games for all these years too.
Alright, I got kind of a strange question for you. I watched an interview with Charles Martinet, if you don't know who that is. That's the voice of Mario and stuff.
One of my dear
He
friends.
talked about how like his characters are like a distinct part of him. Do you feel like there's any characters you voice that feels like a part of you?
All of them.
Even Orochimaru?
Oh yes, of course. We all have a creepy side too. Don't you have to experiment on your friends?
Jesus.
Of course, yeah. Well, Charles and I are very good friends. Whenever we see each other at conventions, we always go out for food and hang out together. I love that guy. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. But we've talked about that before, how these characters start to inhabit us. And as I was talking before about how some of the characters taught me to become more vulnerable, they all sort of sink in there for a while. And every character that I do, I feel some sort of expression of a part of my personality, whether I want to admit it or not. Even the worst of the worst. We all have those feelings sometimes. We all, we feel hate, we feel anger, we feel joy, we feel the whole experience of life. And so one of the other great things about acting is that you get to actually play all of that out in a safe way where you're not hurting people. So, especially characters like Wolverine or Orochimaru, where, they can get very violent, but then I don't go out into the world and hate people or hurt people. I can actually be a nice guy. So yeah, I carry them with me all the time. They've become part of me as much as I've become part of them. Yeah, very synonymous, integral relationship.
Sitting down, you had yourself, and then after saying.
So as somebody in the anime industry and so on, I figure you probably have a couple of animes that you would like to see made into, at some point in the future when they can finally do it right, made into like a live action film or TV franchise.
Yeah.
Which one would you most like to see have it done? Who would direct and who would be the main character?
Wow.
That's a.
That's a. That's a gasp, by the way. That's a huge question. The only one that I can really speak to would be Cowboy Bebop because I have experience in that one. God, is that you? Bebop, like many of you, I was worried about it when it was announced that they were going to be doing a live action version of that with Keanu Reeves. Oh, you don't know this story? Okay, so this will be great for you. Keanu Reeves was attached to that.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that.
He has the rights to it. And he was going to play Spike. And I was thinking, oh no, if this isn't done right, people are going to hate this. And I just wasn't sure if he was the right person for it. And then I met him in an airport once. I was going to a convention. I met him in a store in an airport and went through my fanboy thing with him first. And he's really tall too, really tall and lanky. He actually kind of had the Spike look about him. And I asked him, I just wanted to know if he was invested in it, because that was the biggest thing for me. If he was going to play that role, I wanted to make sure that he loved it like all of us do. And he had watched the series. He was like a little kid talking about it. He loved the show so much that he really wanted to do justice to it. And he said the only problem with it was that there was this beautiful script written, but it was going to be so expensive to produce. The technology hadn't quite caught up at that point. And he said it was going to be like $500 million to produce it the way they wanted to do it. And his biggest fear was that he would be too old to do the stunts by the time it got produced, and it was very important to him to do his own stunts. So all these years later, I think he still has the rights. Watanabe-san is still attached as the executive producer. And as long as they give him creative control on that, I would love to see it done, because now they've got the technology to actually create those scenes like they were in the anime, but in a beautiful, visual way. So, and Yoko Kanno, I think, was going to do the music for it. I would have just loved to be part of that, to do a voiceover, like in the beginning or the end, or be one of the cranky old guys with the planes.
Well, back in '06,
I just want to Spike murders him or something, I would love to. Yeah, exactly. I would love to see that made now, because it has that noir feel and the jazz soundtrack and all that stuff. I think that if it's done right, that could be amazing.
If I could have one follow-up question.
Sure.
What anime do you think is the most out there right now, and all the animes are out there, could be best translated easily into a film? Because like you said, Cowboy Bebop cost $500 million. What do you think could be the breakout one that makes Western audiences go, oh, there's all these amazing stories that we can make into live action films, let's do that? Which one do you think would be the best?
Wow, I'm so not the right person to answer that question, because I don't even watch the shows that I work on. I'm announcing all these shows on Toonami every week, and I haven't seen any of them, including Samurai Champloo. I've seen the first 7 episodes of it. Bebop I didn't see until 5 years ago, and I saw the Out of Order. I'm terrible, so I don't even know what the current ones. I don't know which ones would translate. I know what I see when I'm putting together the promos for them, but other than that,
There's been rumors that HBO is going to do Monster.
Oh.
And do you think that would work?
That's a good one.
I'm a bad anime fan, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
What was it like doing the voice of Abathur, and how did you get that role?
Abathur, the Abathur was really fun. That's another character where they just wanted him to speak slowly, and they pitched him way down. But they showed me the drawings for Abathur, and I thought, wow, that is the creepiest looking creature I have ever seen. And I love working with those guys. I've been working with Blizzard for many years in a lot of their games, and I loved how matter-of-fact he was about just ripping bodies apart and using their strands and building something new. And just for the greater good. He really had no emotion about it at all. That was kind of fun to do. It was evil and not at the same time. But it was one of those things where I just auditioned for it, and they were stupid enough to give me the job. Yeah, I love that. Now I would love to see turn into a series, the Abathur Show. I think it'd be big old ugly slug who talks, spits when he speaks.